The idea of voting, of citizens having a say in their government, is old, very old. It dates back to ancient civilizations where the seeds of democracy were first planted. Imagine ancient Athens, a city buzzing with debate. The air filled with the voices of citizens discussing, arguing and deciding on the matters that affected their lives. This was a direct democracy. Citizens gathered in the Agora, the marketplace and heart of the city. Here they would engage in lively discussions, presenting their views and listening to others. They voted directly on laws, on going to war, on matters big and small. Every decision was made by the people, for the people, in a truly participatory manner. Not everyone could vote. Women, slaves, foreigners, they had no say. This exclusion was a significant limitation, reflecting the societal norms and hierarchies of the time, but for the free men of Athens, it was revolutionary. They held the power, fragile as it might have been. The concept of citizens having a direct role in governance was groundbreaking. Across the Mediterranean, Rome was rising. The Romans, inspired by the Greeks, developed their own system of governance. Romans created a republic, a system where citizens elected representatives. These representatives were entrusted with the responsibility of making decisions on behalf of the people. These representatives made laws and governed on their behalf. The Roman Republic was a complex system with checks and balances, aiming to prevent any single individual from gaining too much power. This too was a limited form of democracy. Only certain men could vote. The right to participate in the political process was restricted to a privileged few. Power remained concentrated, but the seeds of democracy, of citizens participating in their government, were sown. These early experiments in governance laid the foundation for future democratic systems, influencing political thought for centuries to come. With the fall of Rome, Europe plunged into the Dark Ages. Democracy, as practiced by the Greeks and Romans, faded. The Catholic Church became a dominant force. Kings and queens ruled by divine right. The idea of ordinary people voting seemed like a distant memory. Yet, even in these dark times, the embers of democracy flickered. In England, the Magna Carta, signed in 1215, limited the king's power. It was a small step, but it established the principle that even a king was subject to the law. Centuries passed. Then came the Renaissance, a rebirth of art, literature, and ideas. The printing press spread knowledge far and wide. People began to question the old order. This was the Enlightenment, an age of reason and revolution. Thinkers like John Locke challenged the idea of absolute monarchy. Locke argued that governments derive their just powers from the consent of the governed. This idea, popular sovereignty, struck out at the heart of traditional power structures. It implied that people had a right to choose their leaders, to have a voice in how they were governed. The 19th century dawned with revolutions sweeping across Europe and the Americas. These were times of great upheaval and transformation as societies grappled with new ideas and the promise of change. The American Revolution, the French Revolution, these upheavals were fueled by Enlightenment ideals. Philosophers and thinkers of the time championed the concepts of liberty, equality, and fraternity, inspiring people to challenge the old order. People demanded liberty, equality, and the right to self-government. They sought to break free from the chains of tyranny and oppression, envisioning a world where every individual had a voice and a stake in their future. But who were the people? Who truly benefited from these revolutionary changes? For many, it still did not include women. Despite the rhetoric of equality, women remained largely invisible in the political sphere. Women, largely confined to the domestic sphere, had no political rights. Their roles were limited to the home, where they were expected to be dutiful wives and mothers, with little opportunity for personal or professional growth. They could not vote, own property, or hold office. Legal and societal norms kept them in a state of dependency, with their lives and futures controlled by fathers, husbands, and brothers. This injustice did not go unchallenged. Women began to organize and speak out, demanding the same rights and freedoms that men enjoyed. The suffrage movement, the fight for women's right to vote, began to gain momentum. Women from all walks of life joined together, united by a common cause and a shared vision of equality. Pioneers like Mary Wollstonecraft in England and Olympe de Gouges in France argued passionately for women's equality. Their writings and speeches laid the groundwork for future generations, inspiring countless women to continue the struggle for their rights and recognition. Section 5. Civil Rights and the Ballot, the Fight for Equality in the USA. In the United States, the fight for voting rights was deeply intertwined with the struggle for racial equality. This battle was not just about casting a ballot, It was about securing a voice in the democratic process and ensuring that every citizen, regardless of race, had an equal say in the governance of the country. After the Civil War, the 15th Amendment to the Constitution granted African American men the right to vote. This was a monumental step forward, symbolizing a promise of equality and justice. However, the reality was far more complex and challenging, but this right was constantly under attack. Despite the constitutional guarantee, African Americans faced numerous obstacles that prevented them from exercising their right to vote. Southern states implemented poll taxes, literacy tests, and other bureaucratic barriers. These measures were specifically designed to disenfranchise black voters and maintain the status quo of racial segregation and inequality. Grandfather clauses were another tactic used to suppress the black vote. These clauses allowed only those whose grandfathers had voted before the Civil War to bypass literacy tests and poll taxes, effectively excluding many African Americans. The civil rights movement of the 20th century made voting rights a central demand. Activists organized marches, rallies, and voter registration drives to challenge these discriminatory practices and demand equal voting rights for all. Activists faced violence, intimidation, and even death to register black voters. Their courage and determination were instrumental in bringing national attention to the injustices faced by African Americans in the voting process. The Voting Rights Act of 1965, a landmark achievement, outlawed discriminatory voting practices and ensured federal oversight of elections. This act was a significant victory in the fight for equality, paving the way for greater political participation and representation for African Americans and other marginalized groups. Section 6. The voting booth in a digital age: modern advancements and challenges. Technology has transformed the way we vote. Electronic voting machines, online registration, and early voting have made it more convenient for many. But technology also presents new challenges. Concerns about hacking, voter fraud, and the security of electronic systems have fueled debates about election integrity. The rise of social media has also had a profound impact on voting. It has become a powerful tool for political campaigns to reach voters, but it has also facilitated the spread of misinformation and disinformation. Section 7. Navigating the information maze, disinformation and its impact on voting. In the digital age, we are bombarded with information from countless sources. This can make it difficult to distinguish fact from fiction, especially during elections. Disinformation, the deliberate spread of false or misleading information, has become a potent weapon in political campaigns. Foreign actors and domestic groups have exploited social media platforms to sow discord, undermine trust in democratic institutions, and influence voter behavior. This underscores the importance of media literacy, critical thinking, and relying on credible sources of information. Section 8. Voter ID laws: disenfranchisement or security measure. Voter ID laws, which require voters to present identification at the polls, have become a flashpoint in recent elections. Proponents argue that they are necessary to prevent voter fraud and ensure the integrity of elections. Opponents contend that voter fraud is extremely rare and that these laws disproportionately disenfranchise minority voters, low-income voters, and the elderly, who are less likely to have government-issued identification. Section 9. Global perspectives: voting rights around the world. The right to vote is enshrined in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, but it is not universally enjoyed. Around the world, people face barriers to voting, including discrimination, intimidation, and violence. In some countries, elections are rigged, opposition parties are suppressed, and the results are predetermined. The struggle for free and fair elections continues in many parts of the globe. International observers play a crucial role in monitoring elections, promoting transparency, and holding governments accountable. Section 10. Your vote, your voice. The enduring power of civic engagement. Despite the challenges, voting remains a fundamental right and a powerful act of civic engagement. It is the cornerstone of democracy, allowing citizens to hold their elected officials accountable and shape the future of their communities and nations. Every vote matters. Every election has consequences. By exercising your right to vote, you are adding your voice to the chorus of citizens who believe in a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Section 11. The future of voting: innovation and the quest for inclusivity. The future of voting is likely to be shaped by ongoing technological advancements and a continued focus on making voting more accessible and inclusive. Online voting, mobile voting, and blockchain technology are being explored as potential solutions to enhance security, convenience, and participation. Efforts to expand voting rights to marginalized communities, including formerly incarcerated individuals and young people, are also gaining traction. As we move forward, it is essential to ensure that every eligible citizen has an equal opportunity to exercise their right to vote and make their voices heard.